distancing and all of that. We'll probably have them not present like me standing up presenting, but present like give us a short little plan of what they intend to do. We'll spot check to the best of our ability, but we have great community members who run all these programs. I don't have any hesitation whatsoever that it's not going to go well. So that's an exciting thing, I think, for our community, because we couldn't do anything for them last year. And now we're going to be able to have them using our fields, our concession stand, and all of that. So that'll be coming up. School reopening, one of the pieces that we're working on is how do we use the state guidance and the CDC regulations in order to get more students to be able to come back to school 5 days a week. One of the things that we've seen here firsthand are the incidents of, I would say, critical mental health issues among students certainly has risen this year to a number of 15 that have required more care than what we can provide here at school since about October. And that's a pretty alarming number for us. And a lot of it can be attributed to lack of supervision at home, lack of support at home because moms or dads or grandmas or grandpas have to work, but student is home alone, and we're trying to help that. My second concern, but certainly nowhere near as close of a concern as the mental health piece, are being able to close academic learning gaps. They're there in every school district. We can have after school boot camps and summer programs and all of that, but if we can get students back to school sooner than later, let's do it and be able to make that work in a safe way. So as of right now, because I was getting off a call with the county right before I stepped in here tonight, the way that the agreement that we have right now is that our UPK through 8th grade will be here in person 5 days a week, beginning the week of April 19th. One of the heavier lifts that we're having an issue with, which we'll get through, but is actually having to have food service be at 6 feet as opposed to 3 feet. You might think that that's not a big deal, but let's just take Gorham as an example. We're going to have to open a third cafeteria potentially in order to be able to deliver lunch of all things. But we're working on that. In fact, we're going to meet after this meeting tonight to try to get through some of that as well. So each principal is being tasked with getting to their parents and students about all the details associated with each building plan. I didn't think it was appropriate, and we have administrators for a reason, for them to be able to speak with their own employees and parents and students. The more difficult challenge that we're going to have is, before I mention that, what I agreed to with the county was today, in order to get the middle school here starting on Monday, is just a re-education of mask wearing, making sure that that's going to be one of the most paramount things that we do. And then also in terms of contact tracing, just making sure that we're keeping adequate notes like we always do. And we also have an agreement that if somebody should get ill and have COVID in a classroom, that's brought back, we meaning the county health department, is not going to automatically quarantine the entire class. I got them to agree, which I actually have in writing, that we will do the epicenter. The epicenter of the contact tracing will start with the infected individual and will be a north, south, east, west proximity to that person as who may or may not be quarantined. We also agreed in writing to a 60-minute interval of time. It used to be 20 to 30 minutes of masked activity to be quarantined. We've increased that to 60 minutes. And then on top of that, any of our employees who have chosen to be vaccinated have a low to zero chance of being quarantined should anybody else in their classroom be quarantined. So those are all, I think, positive things. One of the pieces that we're kind of working on now with the county is how might we be able to get our high school students back. Middle school, we're able to cohort, which was what got us over the hurdle today in order to get them back on Monday. The high school cannot cohort because they've got electives and they have student movement that has to happen on an almost period by period basis in order to fulfill student schedules. So how do you do that? Ontario County would like us to use the CDC daily data screen, which I'm going to put a video out tomorrow to our community about how that works and where they can get a hold of it. And essentially what that is, it's a 7-day rolling average. And they want that number of cases on a 7-day rolling average to be below 100. And right now that number is at 221 as of today. So kind of the conversation that I had this afternoon and just had again with the county was, since not all of our students live in Ontario County, some live in Yates County. And so in fact, there's about 63% of our students, give or take, live in Ontario and the rest live in Yates. So shouldn't we be able to use a weighted blend? And thanks to Phyllis, she and I had a math conversation this afternoon to make sure that my logic wasn't flawed, and I got high marks from Phyllis on that. That was good. My math brain was still working properly. We should have a weighted average, I feel, of as a percent of the number of students who reside in Yates versus the number of students who reside in Ontario. So if you do the math on that, which Phyllis and I did and agreed on the numbers, you end up with a 7-day rolling average of under 100. It's actually about 72 and change, 77 and change. So I expressed that to Ontario County, and they had a pretty big meeting about it with all of their people around 5:15 tonight. And I still don't have a response, but they were nice enough to get back to me before I stepped in here to say that that they're going to hear back, that I'm going to hear back from them. And if the answer is no, the answer is no. But I always feel, and I think the board feels as well, not to speak for you, but we're advocates and we're the voices for people who don't have them in this organization. So we've done all of our homework, in my opinion, ahead of time. We have done surveying of our community. We've done surveying of our employees. Brian Ayers, president of the Teachers Association, did his own survey of his teachers a few weeks back. We've figured out the transportation pieces. We've done our homework, and it's time for us to make a move. And so while I hope that people see this conversation as being collegial and just being advocates, we're going to continue on that. And hopefully tomorrow I'll have some news about the high school. But John?
First of all, I appreciate all your hard work on this grant. The middle school cohorts, are they still going to remain separated?
They are not. So it's going to be a new cohort. It's going to be all, instead of the students combined. Yep. Yes. Yep. Same thing with so Gorham will also cohort, for lack of a better term, now too. So they'll all be in the same room. So when I presented that to the county today and they accepted it, I presented it as a new cohort, because we're taking students that may be in the same classroom but every other day, and we're bringing them in every day. And the other piece that we mentioned was, if a student is virtual now and doing their learning fully remote right now, they do have the option of staying that way through the remainder of the year, or they can come back to school. And that we made calls to every single family weeks ago about this. And by and large, most of the families at this point who have had children who are fully virtual are going to remain that way for the rest of the year. But we kind of did the homework on that. So yes.
Just so I'm clear, so
Yep.
the blue and gold, they're going to stay blue and gold. It's just that however they've been operating virtual and in person, the blues will be combined.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, and as it stands for, if you're a middle school parent, the only thing that's different, 8th graders right now have gotten used to kind of using a locker, and that can continue because they're cohorted. The 6th and 7th grade likely won't use lockers this year because they're going to be in one space for they're going to be using one space. And I guess I'll make sure I'm right on this to you. When we talk about, so we have a blue group that's out here, we have a gold group that's out here. They do have to come together in order to have the same teacher on the same day at the same time. So we are kind of combining them, if that's kind of what you were asking. So it kind of starts, and it's the beginning of a new cohort in a way, and that was approved. I'm not saying anything that we didn't, but that's how it has to work. Otherwise, we don't have enough teachers.
Just like the kids on the 19th, when they go to school, they're gonna know where to go. Right?
Yes.
I mean, everything's gonna be communicated.
Yeah, so Dr. Cole has a communication. I asked him to hold off until after our meeting tonight, because I still view yesterday, today, and tomorrow as the hearing window. I do want to give people an opportunity to ask questions, to make comments, and From phone calls today and emails and all that from the community members and parents, I would say today I've probably had, I think it's 15 people who have reached out just with clarifying questions, similar to what you just asked. So Dr. Cole's putting all of that. We have a one pager coming out for Gorham, for the middle school, and eventually hopefully for the high school, that will have the basics, and then we'll have the deeper detailed plan on our website that we have to submit. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we might be able to get some headway with our high school, but if we can't, I don't want you to think it's for lack of try. I mean, we're trying to do all we can to make that happen. Cindy?
So just so I'm clear, so a little bit ago, we said the 8th graders were moving because they were getting antsy,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so when you say cohort, like in my mind, we're cohorted at my school, that's the same 12 kids who stay together.
Right. So now it's going to be the same 19 or 20 or the same 20 or 21 students who are going to stay together.
Which will be in a classroom and the teacher comes to them, or they move
They're going to, right. So they're going to be in a classroom and the teacher will be with them. Yes.
for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
Yes. Yep.
So will you run into that problem again with kids getting antsy, or that's just too bad?
It's, well, I think at this point, we have to look at the pros and cons, right? And I think one of the cons might be, that might get a little antsy. Now, on the flip side, we're going to have 10 weeks left of school. It's the 4th marking period for the middle school.
Right.
We will be able to use outside a heck of a lot more than we have because the weather's gonna be warmer. We have 2 outdoor classrooms right in the woods, right by the middle school that can be utilized, or other spaces like down by the art room and all of that. So I don't know that it's gonna be how it was in the winter. I think we're gonna have more options. Plus, we have sports allowed now and other activities that we didn't have in the past, So I think, could a few students still get a little antsy? Sure,
Yeah.
but I think it's gonna be lesser than it was when the weather wasn't good.
So how many students will be in a classroom going?
Well, it's gonna depend on it's gonna depend on the size, we have to physically be able to fit them in there and meet the regulations. So Dan and Clay are going through the tape measures to make sure that at 3 feet of distance, how many can we fit in a class? So I don't want to give you a number because
Right.
it's gonna vary.
And the cafeteria will look still in that?
Cafeteria will still be,
Still be-
yep. And that's something else. If we have spillover, Clay's got to figure that out with Dan about if we have extra students for lunch, where might that happen
Right.
within the regulations. So, yeah, but I feel comfortable. I appreciate everybody stepping up because it's been a lift. I know we have a lot of employee groups, right? It starts with our bus drivers and it's our custodians, cleaners, our teachers. It's everybody, including our administrators. And it's, for this last piece of time, I think it's the right thing to do because we very well could start this way in the fall. And I would rather work out all the kinks now so the fall goes like that, as opposed to spending the first month in the fall trying to figure out things we could have figured out right now. And that's why we're going to continue to push on that.
I'm sorry,
No,
there's
it's
a lot
fine.
of information
That's
today.
why we're here.
So teachers who have been teaching the virtual students,
Right.
so how will that look if they end up with 3 students? I mean, how does that work for
Yeah.
like Valley and the middle?
Yeah, so we still have to wait for the dust to settle on that.
Okay.
It'll be one of 2 things. It'll either be a dedicated teacher for those few students, or if there are more, we'll filter students in. One of the things that I'm trying to avoid to the best of my ability is I'm trying to get away from a teacher having to teach the kids in their class and students at home at the same time. I'm trying my best to make it a priority that we not do that in so much as possible.
But that's what's happening right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, yes,
Yeah.
because there's also some asynchronous instruction going on where students who are at home might receive their instruction a little bit differently than in class, and they check in with the teacher. That happens more at the high school right now
Right.
at times. So I don't want to get, I guess I don't want to get pinned down to one thing that somebody might hear on the internet and have it be something else. Like for example, I know in 8th grade, I think our numbers are 19 in the classroom based on the measurements. But if another student decides to go virtual, that could swing a lot. So I would say to you that we're going to follow the 3-foot regulations. We're going to try to have teachers not have to teach virtually and in person in so much as possible, and get ourselves through the rest of the school year that way. We're going to try our best on that.
So if a parent wants their child virtual for the end of the year.
Yep.
They have to stick to that, right? They can't
Correct.
change
So
it.
what we're
Say, oh, my son,
Correct.
his kids all, his friends all, oh, no, they want to come back.
Yes, so everything is a negotiation, right?
Otherwise,
So,
they'd be at home.
yes, everything's a negotiation. And one of the pieces in talking to the teachers is we did have some students in the beginning of this come to school for 3 days, go virtual for a couple days, or we had students that just got up late and said, hey, I know it's my in-person day, but I'm just going to take my classes virtual. And while for certain teachers though, in certain classes that works, it's more of a college environment. As a public school, we've got to make it work with the resources that we have, and our people are stretched as far as I think we can stretch them. And I've really got to be cognizant of that, because with 10 weeks left, yes, the sun's coming out, but for as hard as I'm working, they're working just as hard. Our drivers, everybody is. So I'm trying to take some things off their plate if at all possible. And I think the piece of you need to commit to, if you're going to stay home, you're home from now to the end of the school year. That's something we're going to stick to.
I
And
think you have to.
I think you have to.
He knows you're getting, well, my son works better at home, and, I mean,
Right.
you just can't, I mean, is that what they're gonna do for the rest of their kids' school years, is decide if they're gonna work from home?
So it's
ridiculous.
so to answer your question, and for those who might not have heard it on YouTube, it's an awesome question. So the question was, might a parent select that for their child moving forward? I think if you want to call it a problem, concern, thing, is that the state probably is going to make us have a virtual option moving forward in the next year. Now, that being said, myself, Jamie Farr from Canandaigua, and Vicky Ramos from BOCES, and Matt Sickles from Mid Lakes, I think I'm missing somebody, we've developed a committee to have BOCES explore a virtual school. So we're looking at starting our own school that's a virtual school, so that our teachers here can teach kids who are here. And if you want to have if you want to learn virtually, that's totally cool. But we're going to pool from the teachers that all of us have. And so if we have a period, if we have a teacher who's got a period that's not being used, maybe they're open to the pool and they're going to be in that virtual school through BOCES or whatever. It's just the planning stages, but the complication moving forward of being able to have students choose the virtual or remote, it's a staffing nightmare and it's a resource nightmare. I'm not saying it's good or bad, because some students have excelled virtually and others have not. So what we want to do is utilize our BOCES, which is an available program. I think what sometimes people forget is that BOCES is an arm of a public school. So just because, if they have a program, we can, that's part of our offering. And so we could say, look, yes, your child can learn virtually all of next year. Here's how that's going to happen through this service. And if we're able to donate people to the pool, then it would be of no cost or even a refund back to the school district, depending upon who we may or may not have available to do that. So again, it's in the planning stages, but that's probably, that's when Vicki and I talked about it, I said, the long-term solution's got to be, you got to stop the bus, no pun intended, somehow, and here's your virtual option. And what's happening in school has to be able to happen in school. And I think the two things can live together just fine. Because you're going to get quality instruction. We're going to meet all the APPR requirements. You're going to have a teacher of record. All the things you have to have will still happen. You'll have an administrator that'll help to oversee it, all of that. There'll be a Marcus Whitman student who will graduate as a Marcus Whitman student. They just attended whatever the name, virtual school, that's how it's going to work. So I'll be able to give you more information. We have another meeting, I think, next week. So probably by the May meeting, I'll be able to give you some updates on that. But that's kind of the working thought right now. So that's that. Yeah, go ahead.
I got one too.
Go ahead.
So I would imagine if one of our teachers is stepping up, I'm gonna imagine a portion would be their salary to become post-disabled.
Yes, that's the thought. Yeah.
I got 2 air high fives for you.
Yeah.
And just thank you for all your work. I'll speak as a parent right at the moment. I would hug you if I could. Well, I mean, you have just removed such a large burden from a lot of us just to get all the way through 8th grade. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, if we can get our kids in school 5 days a week, we have state tests coming. This is
I was gonna say, it's, as you
I know
know,
it's not
as you know, working in a school district, it's people have to be willing to want to do the things that we're doing. And I can't say that everybody, including myself, wakes up every morning saying, I'm willing to do this, but we know I think we know at the end of the day, what is best for children, and that's what we're here for. We're not here for ourselves, as you know, we're here for kids. And I think if we continue to have the strong, I can't say enough about Mr. Pasho. He's had the most challenging building in more ways than one to try to make that happen. But he and his teachers and support staff have found ways to make the impossible possible. I look at Dr. Cole, and cohorting is, as you know, is not easy. It is not easy, especially when you're in a postage stamp sized building because of a capital project that is making it so you don't have extra classrooms. We just don't. We're without 12 classrooms right now on this campus. That's tough. And so when the high school comes around, I talked to Jen Taft today. I said, how many days do you need? If I was able to get permission today, how many days do you need? She said, give me 5 days and we'll have everybody back. High school principal. That's pretty remarkable stuff, and Dan Blankenberg and his staff, the drivers are your frontline people right now. When we look at the regulations and they say that students should be at 1 per seat, we all know that in order to make this happen, that can't happen. So you're gonna really bend and break the word should. And that's what I talked to the Department of Health about today, to make them very, very aware that this is what we're doing. And they said they knew because we're a rural school district, kids can't walk to school, which is recommended by the state. They can't. And a lot of our parents, let's face it, can't afford to drive their kids to school every day because they have to go to work or they don't have a car. And so they understood that. And so they said, okay, just tell me that your first thought is 1 to a seat and your second thought is 2 to a seat. I said, that's what I can tell you. And I said, okay, but that's what you got to do. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kudos to
Yeah.
the whole team.
yeah, no, yeah. I think when you come to, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I think when you come to celebrate them on April 29th, those who are able to, I think you're going to see, I think you're going to see a lot of pride of what people are pulling off. It's remarkable. And I know I'm proud of it. Cindy.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The email said something about a hearing for the community, like this week. What does that look
So
like?
what you have to do, so actually this is actually part of the hearing right
Okay.
now, because a hearing by definition generally is we give somebody notice that here's the topic we want to talk about and we want your feedback about it. And then the hearing has a beginning and an end. So the hearing, when I sent out my email, I think it was last night, that's when the hearing window opened, and I made sure to state in that message, this is whatever I said, this is the opening of the hearing or whatever, right? So on Wednesday, I'll close that and then what I'll do is I'll provide feedback. Thank you for what you've done. Here are some of the questions that we got. Here are some of the answers. Erica's working on a frequently asked questions, just like we had in the beginning of all this mess. We're going to do an updated FAQ based on the stuff I'm getting from the hearing, meaning just walking the earth, listening to people and
Right.
taking feedback.
Okay.
And then tomorrow I have a short video that's going to come out. It's going to talk about what I just mentioned about the high school, and I'm going to direct people on how to access the website, how you can see the rolling average, how all that works, so that people know what we know in terms of information. The people that we're not able to satisfy are people, which I took 2 calls today. So I had 2 irate calls today from parents who want their kids to be able to come back without wearing masks. And that is just, we are not able to make that happen. And so there was no way I was able to make these parents happy. I couldn't. And so I got I got some F-bombs and all that, but you can't, they have their beliefs and we have our beliefs, but then we also have regulations, and we are certified, and you're on the Board of Education. You took an oath to uphold the laws and regulations of New York State and board policy, just as I did. So we can't go too far from that and without exposing ourselves to what we said we weren't going to do, right? And that's kind of what I said to these parents. And I'll see them at Food Link the next week and we'll be fine. It's just they're expressing their emotion because they're over it. And it is what it is. But that's
Why
so.
don't you just direct them to Ontario?
So I've directed them to Pam Helming because I think Senator Helming is.
Their rules.
No, and I feel strongly that, and I'll get your, just in a sec. So I feel strongly that Senator Helming has probably had the loudest voice for education out of any elected official that can serve us. And I think she's done a good job with that. So regardless of what you think about her, right? I think I think what she has done is she's taken the information from us, the superintendents in the schools. She's put it on her letterhead. She's been passionate about it, and she's jamming it through State Department of Health and the governor's office. So the parents that really want their children to be back without masks and no physical distancing, by the way, I've directed them to Senator Hellman because that's their conduit. They're not going to get a phone call back from the Department of Health or from the governor's office. They're going to get a call back from Hellman's office. And
We're not gonna if they talk like that.
no, but I mean, hopefully they will compose themselves enough to get a call back. So yeah.
So I have three questions.
Yep.
One's for the middle school, one's for Gorham, and then something else.
Okay.
The middle school, we're going from 12 to 6 feet for physical education classes, correct?
Correct.
Now, the cohorts are gonna go, how is that gonna look for them, for the cohorts? So the cohort will go down and do PE, or how is PE?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the cohort now is going to do PE because we can make that happen with 6 feet and a lot of outdoor physical
Okay, that's
education.
what I was
Those are gonna be at 10 of you. Yep.
So I
Yes.
got, great.
Yep.
We're gonna go to maybe three cafeterias to feed the children in Gorham.
It's possible. Eric and I have been back and forth on that. He and Dan think, and again, we're gonna meet after this meeting. We're gonna talk after this meeting, I should say. He thinks just before I came here, he thinks he figured out a way to get it to have 2 cafeterias instead of 3. So if we have to have 3, there's a piece I'll talk about in executive session because it discusses certain people. I'll have to talk with you about that, okay? And how we can make that work, all right?
So then my third question will be executive session. And I say kudos to the whole thing with doing stuff online because the colleges are doing that.
Right.
And doing that in high school and getting them ready for doing stuff online in college, it just is a much better education for them. Because then when they get to the college age, they're already ready to go and it's not such a whoa moment for them.
If they're in a situation, I feel, if they're in a situation that was designed for them, planned for them, and carried out for them, as opposed to, we're in a pandemic and Mrs. Frida all of a sudden has to figure out, which she's an expert, she's the expert. She has to figure out how she's gonna manage all of her kids. And then we've got virtual time. I just think that, I visit the classrooms all the time. The teachers and the kids are doing well. I really feel like they are, they're doing more than well. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not gonna ask them to do it again next year if I can avoid it. I think having a regular virtual component that meets all the New York State standards, that is signed off on by the state, which we're gonna get a stamp as well, so it's gonna be official. I think that's the correct way to go.
Yeah.
If the state's gonna say you have to do it, because for so many years, teachers unions, not just NYSUT, but UFT and others, have fought against virtual instruction because they feel that virtual instruction takes away jobs. It's been one of the things that's happened for a dozen years. It started with distance learning, and then it went to virtual learning, which is why certain states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, they're allowed to have virtual online schools, and they're allowed to have brick and mortar online schools. You have to start delineating between who can participate in what and have all those arguments. So New York State they have their toes in the water on that. I want to be on the forefront of that and say, okay, while you have your toes in the water, here's the plan that this region would like to use.
Correct.
That's what we're doing.
Because visiting schools outside of the state.
Yeah.
They're huge on having a well-rounded student that's not just brick and mortar, but
Right.
also using that computer. And so to have that here in this little school, to have a well-rounded student in both ways,
Yeah.
kudos.
That's what I'm saying. That's my feeling on it.
I agree with you.
And I don't think, I'm not gonna speak for Mrs. Frida, but I would fully expect her classes, even if we have 3 students that are choosing in her grade level to use virtual school, she's not gonna put all the Chromebooks away for who's left. I mean, they're still they've learned a lot of cool things, positive things to do, not just enrichment, with computers. So I think it's gonna be a good plan. That's how I feel. What did I miss?
Oh, good.
Well, off the clock. We're good. All right, so.
You did
Thank
good.
you. Health clinic is going in a very positive direction. Just wanted you to know that. We'll be using Michelle Roaring's nurse's office. It's got the square footage. It's going to meet the specs. I have to write, and Shereen, remind me, I have to write a letter of support that's going to go to the state. I think I emailed you actually, but that just says that we're all about this grant. We want to partner. We want to do this. And it's looking very positive that it will go, it'll be successful. So just to recap for those who maybe haven't been reading everything every week, the 8 million emails that I send out in the community. One of the pieces that we are not able to do, which is okay, is this health clinic will not have the behavioral health component, which is okay, because we already do. You know, we have psychologists, we have social workers, we have counselors, so I'm not gonna lose sleep over that. The dental piece that they're going to have, they're going to have a, one room is gonna be set up and designated for dental, but they're not going to have a dentist here every day. We'll still do scheduled clinic type things like cleanings and all of that, but if somebody has to have somebody's having a major tooth pain, a student is or whatever, they can get a dentist here in minutes from Rushville to come up and attend to that, but we're not gonna have a dentist here all the time. The piece that I think is gonna be really beneficial for us from a variety of points of view is being able to have a physician and nurses, including Michelle Roaring, on hand every day. Because if you think about it, if a child has to have a doctor's appointment for something, they hurt their arm or they have a headache or whatever it might be, that parent has to schedule that. And if they're not using the Rushville doctor and they're going someplace else, that child's gonna be out of school for a longer period of time now than they're going to be if they come to the health clinic and get their service there. The other piece is too, this health clinic is gonna have access to everybody else's doctors as long as the parents give permission for that. So if we do have an acute case, someone has an appendix issue quickly or a spleen issue, our doctors with permission from the parent will be able to get information from the child's doctor like that, and will be able to render care. So the before and after the school day is still in play. So we'll have after hours, we're gonna have during school hours, you know, and it's gonna be open to all of our students. And I just think that's huge. So if a parent doesn't have insurance, that child is still going to get served, just like someone who has insurance is gonna get served. And that's part of this grant, is to pay for that service through the grant. So I'll be able to let you know, they extended the deadline to April 7th for the initial, yes, we want to do this. That was submitted, and now we have another checkpoint coming up. I think it's the 22nd. I'll let you know how that goes. But as far as we know, it's going pretty well. Okay.
How long is the grant for?
The grant right now it's a 5-year grant, but when we talk to the CEO there, we are building the program to be self-sustaining. So pretend the grant isn't even there. They still think today, so pretend the grant never came up. They still think they can make it work economically viably for them in our school. So we're building it to be sustainable.
How is that one?
It's billing, so they'll be billing insurance, you'll have more people with insurance that don't.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. So they think they can do it. And we did have a great call with some other school districts that have health clinics, mostly to the east of us, in smaller schools our size, and they've been very, very successful. Somebody asked me a question, how much does a lease cost? Like, do you charge somebody to be in here for this partnership? The answer is yes. You don't have to. Some people do it for $1. Some people do it for, you know, $100 or whatever. We agreed with the Mosaic that the working price we're going to use is $12,500 a year for them to operate their health clinic in our school. And the rationale, from my perspective, for charging that is there are going to be startup costs. There are going to be probably growing pain costs, at least in that first year, for sure. Things we don't know and things we have to navigate. There's a price for that. And so we think for at least the first year, that's a safe number. And then if we want to adjust it, if it goes so well, we decide that the partnership is growing, we can always bring that number down. I wouldn't increase it because it's pegging the ceiling of what anybody charges for a health clinic in a school. It's a blessing to have a health clinic in a school. It's not something you're trying to make money off of, you know. Cindy or Sheila, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the health clinic, the grant itself was for startup costs, correct?
No, it's for startup, operation, overhead, everything.
Oh, okay.
It's if we have to have an architect in here to redesign the space and
Right.
rework the space, it's all in the grant.
Yep.
But the money from the grant goes to us or goes to Mosaic?
The money from the grant goes to Mosaic, and
So
then, yeah.
charging them back is
Yeah.
what we need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words, the learning moment that they had the other day, which is fine, because I'm learning from them too. The learning moment they had from us was they had acquired an architect that they used for some of their own stuff, private sector stuff. And I said, can't happen because, our Board of Education, each reorganizational meeting, elects to have their own architect. And right now it's SEI, and they're currently doing our capital project, and they'll be doing our next capital project. I'm like, so you can have your own architect do any planning out here that you want. A, we're not paying a dime for that, and B, they're not stepping foot in the school district because we have architects. So I've already made the connection between the two architectural firms, and now SEI is going to take that over, and Mosaic helped us fine with that. But that's just they don't do our work, I don't do their work. So it's just one of those back and forth
And
things.
so is the thought that the high school nurse's office would be moving,
I don't think so
or
because
they
we're
would be in?
I'm looking to utilize her probably in a role. I can't think of the title. Zoe, remember the title I was thinking of? It's like a nurse practitioner type role that they have to have, and Michelle is qualified for that, and we've talked about that. So she may take on a greater role with the health clinic, and then also as our head nurse for the school district. So we have, it's a little bit early to speculate what that contract or agreement would look like, but that's kind of the working plan, so that she can continue to be involved with all of our students, but also have, be able to have some guidance and steering on how the health clinic works, because she knows our community so well. Any other questions on the health clinic? Budget update, I'm not going to belabor that. I've talked to you a lot about the budget. I just don't want you to be at Wegmans and tell people that we have a lot of money, okay? We don't, and I mean that, okay? Because people have to understand that a lot of the money that's on the news is money that we have to apply for, has to go for specific things, has to be accounted for. And we don't know what's going to happen in the governor's office coming up, and we don't know what's going to happen in the New York City mayor race. And somebody might say, why do we care about the New York City mayor race? It doesn't take long to learn. Anything that happens east of the George Washington Bridge is a pretty big deal when it comes to state politics and education. So what I would tell people is we feel very fortunate to be able to have the resources that we have, that we feel that we've put a very true and strong budget together. We don't want to make any changes to it at this point, and we'll evaluate as things go forward. If somebody comes from up above and comes down to us in August before we have tax bills that go out, and they say, hey, here's a boatload of money, then we can talk about it. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. The timelines are not going to meet up. But at the same time, I think if we have a conservative budgeting approach, which we do, we'll take that money that's supposed to last for 3 years, and I think we're going to get 4, 5, 6 years out of it. I really, really do, if we're smart. And that's the goal, is to work smarter, not harder. I think we can still do another phase of a capital project. I think we can do all of the things that we've been doing. I feel very fortunate, and I was saying to Zoe, it makes me feel like the days when we budgeted, in 2005 to 2010, when you were able to meet the needs of students, but you weren't in a position to keep adding everything that somebody came into a board meeting and said, I think we want this, and we need this, and we need this. That's the importance of the strategic plan, which I'm going to talk about for 15 seconds in a moment. So capital project update, I had an opportunity to send you the most recent document of pictures and everything else. I'm still open to give you tours. We're going to be opening up some tours for our employees probably next week. I'm a little leery about it because right now there's so many contractors in there working right now that I don't want to interrupt their workflow. So also they have a lot of stuff. There's a lot of dust and everything going on. They're putting in windows, they're doing everything, they're painting, putting in drop ceilings. We're at that point of the second floor, right? Believe it or not. And but after school at 3:30 on, I'm working it out with Mr. Herendeen, who's been awesome as the lead, and he's also a community member. He knows I want to get some people through here. He wants to get some people through here, and so we will. And as board members, you're always open to tour that. You just give me a call or whatever, either myself or Dan will get you up in there, okay, and to be able to see it. And then lastly, the strategic planning piece, I've beat it to death. We're going to have a strategic planning committee. We will establish a strategic plan during the course of next school year that'll help us to guide some of that money and resources that we have coming our way. Okay, so that's probably enough. Yes, Cindy.
I didn't know we were allowed to ask questions. So back to the facilities
Yep,
update.
yep.
The outdoor part, because of the age of the kids, how do we have to limit parents? Because obviously they're gonna drive their kids to practice
Yes.
and then they usually hang out.
Yeah, so we're gonna follow the same guidelines that the state uses for high school, for interscholastic athletics. So right now, right this second, it's depending, we're gonna use the maximum of whatever we can.
Okay.
Right now, the working piece usually is two parents per athlete, right?
Right,
But if you think of football, they've allowed 200 now, 200, up to two, they've allowed up to 200 now. Like, so for a football game, we'd be able to have all of our parents and then some,
Right.
technically. But we want to plan for that. I would not put a youth activity in a position to say no to a parent, where they have to say, okay, we can let 200 people in. Okay, number 201, you gotta sit in your car.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. I wouldn't put that on them. I've been a little league coach. I've done all that.
Yeah.
I would not put that on. So what I would say is my idea would be to say, okay, you can bring 2 people per athlete. And if there's a time, or maybe we can feature you on the big field or something like that, where you can stand up on the hill or whatever, that might be the time to do it. But after doing all those things, I can't see where I'd want to say no to that 3rd grandparent or whatever. I just think we need to come out of the box and say, here's your number. It's 2.
so obviously you're not gonna have school personnel monitoring that.
No.
So who the coaches are gonna have, so if I'm standing there with Sheila and we don't have our masks on,
Yep.
they have to go say something to them?
They're gonna have to, yeah, that's one of the things that just has to be that way. And
Yep.
I don't think it's worth I want to choose my words carefully. I don't think that our taxpayer dollars should go to that resource of
Oh, right.
babysitting the youth organizations
Right.
when our organizers and coaches are very capable. And I think if the parents want the opportunity for their kids,
Yep.
they're gonna follow that, to the best of their ability. You're gonna get a person or 2 who won't, but you're not gonna get, most people are gonna say, hey, it's great, we're getting an opportunity. I don't have to drive to Seneca Falls to have my lacrosse opportunity. I can do it right here at Whitman. I think people are gonna say, well, I just have to wear a mask in order to do that. Done. Because I think it's gonna happen. So,
And city, so like my wife is president of lacrosse, I'm big into football, so we're actually telling folks like, drop your kid out.
And they're
Avoid
okay with
whole
that?
situation. A lot of them are.
yeah.
They're like, sweet, free babysitting.
Yeah.
And then I know for lacrosse, like we have a team mom or dad.
Yeah.
Charge everybody that comes in and doing that. Hey. well,
Good.
knows,
Yeah.
because everybody's very grateful.
Yes.
that we might have the chance to
Yep.
use. So, yeah. And there's already been a couple conversations, kind of like what Chris was saying.
Yep.
With all my kids coming out, then don't go.
Then just don't come.
Right,
Yeah, so.
Not on a bullet point, because it happened in the car on the way here, was, the state did just come out with some guidance for graduations. Just so you know, they just did. So, my sense is there's gonna be a lawsuit about it. If there isn't one now, there'll be one by the time I'm watching Sports Center tomorrow morning, breakfast, because it's gonna require either a negative COVID test or a proof of vaccine. And in a public facility, I can guarantee you somebody's gonna sue for discrimination because of that. So if it was a private college, they can do whatever they want. We're not private. So I want to hold off before I give any comment about what the guidance is until we see what happens in the next few days, because I just think by tomorrow you'll be reading about some lawsuit somewhere. We'll deal with it. So, okay.
Chris,
Yeah.
one last question.
Yep.
Are you gonna do a strategic plan?
Working on it.
I just want to follow up. Can I follow up?
Yep.
The other thing you're approving tonight is the property tax report card. This is just a format of all the budget information the state requires us to put in the portal. It's not a pretty form because I just printed it off the portal. So what it asks you for, really, the front page is the tax cap calculation, pretty much simplified, not all those lines. And then it also asks you where your reserves are at this moment in time, not on June 30th, as of March, your reserve balances and what your intention of usage for those reserves in the following year. So this is something that we have to file with the state and giving them our information, our budget information, once you approve the budget.
The green sheet is your Wegmans sheet or your Aldi's or Tops, wherever you're shopping. It's this, you should laminate it. These are the facts. If somebody asks you somewhere at the store, or on the sideline of your youth sports thing that you're going to, these are the facts.
I plan on handing it out.
Yeah, you might as well. And we'll make it available, right? So we'll make sure that people
Chris's
understand.
cell phone number.
Yeah. But that's what the green sheet is, just so you want, just so you know. Thank you, Zoe, for putting that together. All right, I'm done talking for now.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Well, thank you. I think those were all important updates. So good questions, good discussion. That's going to bring us to our consent agenda. Hang on a second. And that is the same G1A to, now this says, just approved through L, sure. This says G16. Shall I scroll?
You approved the agenda. And now you're doing the consent to G16 because you're going to discuss H.
Okay, gotcha. So this is going to, yeah, because we're going to approve, okay, hold on. I'm going to scroll, just to make sure. Yeah, so right now, we want to, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda G1A to G16. We're going to discuss HF. Okay? I hear Carrie and I heard Corey, a second. Are there any questions on those?
So we're gonna discuss G1H.
We're going to discuss H1A, H1B, and H1C.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
So this is just through G16. So are there any other questions on those? Waiting for clarification here. Go ahead.
So this is the form.
Yeah, no, that's. All right,
I didn't know.
that's okay. That's okay. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Can we discuss these all together? H1A, H1B, and H1C. I think that was in a Friday. Yes, I think that was in a Friday memo and we asked for to discuss it.
Yep, so one of the things that you had asked, or one of the things I had said that we would discuss actually, has to do with the upcoming election, with the upcoming board votes, budget votes, sorry. Shereen does a phenomenal job. As you know, last year was a heavy lift for anybody who was handling budget votes. And Shereen did a masterful job of how we handled that last year. We don't exactly know how it's going to work this year. We think there's going to be some freedom now to have people come in and vote and all of that. Because you have fiduciary responsibility to the school district, this is a topic that we really have to discuss. It's not a lot of money, but it's different. And so I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to express yourselves or have any comments that you wanted to make. The areas, most of the area school districts and the Board of Elections are pushing the people that actually run the actual voting machines. So they're part of the Department of Elections. They have gotten election training in order to run the machines and all of that. Want to be paid minimum wage now in order to run the machines and all of that. Okay, so for a district our size, that's 2 people. And first, it's your call ultimately. But we feel that as far as running the machines, if we are not able to pay the people who are running the machines, they're going to say no, and we're going to have a difficult time at our budget vote with the machine, with running the machines. Okay, so that's one thing out here. Okay, then you have people that need to shake hands and kiss babies and get people signed in, and where's the machine and how do I fill it all out? Okay, they've been volunteer for a long time. The thought is, if we're going to have 6 people possibly in the same physical space, are we okay with paying the 2 people who are trained through the Board of Elections to run the machines and having the 3 other people be volunteer? Okay, so your total net cost for all the people soaking wet is probably about $700. So I don't want somebody who's on YouTube watching thinking we're talking about millions of dollars. We're not. However, this board has done a tremendous job of working through ideas and making sure that something new is coming down and it has a financial impact, even if it's $700. Once you say yes to something that has a financial significance to it, you're not going to get rid of it. Okay, so I'm not going to sway you either way, except to say that I feel strongly that if we don't pay the 2 voting machine people, they're probably gonna say no, and we're gonna have a very difficult time getting the voting machines operating. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say about the shaking hands, kissing babies, registering people, volunteers that we've had for years and years and years. So I just want to open it up for, I guess, discussion, right? Is that okay to say?
Are these 2 people that are listed here, people that have done it for us in the past? Because I don't recognize either of those names. They're not.
Can you discuss
Yeah,
the process? Can you discuss that you asked 6 people and like what the procedure and that they had training?
So I'm gonna let Shereen talk about this, and she's kind of our election guru, and I'll screw it up. So Shereen.
I reached out to Board of Elections in Yates County because they're the ones that we use their machines. And with using their machines, we have to use their election inspectors. So I have to stay within our district for people working our budget vote. So there's 6 people on the list, and I called 4 people and they just said, no, they weren't comfortable due to COVID coming into the building. And then the last 2 on the list said that they would do it, but again, due to COVID coming in the building, they would like to be paid. So I just told them that I would look into it and I would let them know.
And here we are.
So now, what about the other ones, the volunteers? They, so if they get paid now, how do they get, do you handpick those 2? Because there might be people who want to do it now, if they're gonna get paid.
These are the volunteers that I've had for, I would say, many years. I don't have a running list of people that have called and said, I'm interested in helping out.
Okay, so people, so you don't put anything out there on the website, they're looking for inspectors.
No.
So, but I'm just saying, you probably will get more people if they're gonna be paid to want to do it now.
Can I
I don't
clarify
mind
that?
paying,
But can I clarify that? I don't know how many more you're gonna get to run the machines, right? Is that?
Why don't you mind
Right,
paying?
so the
Yeah.
running of
This is the other
machines
piece,
is different than the volunteers that we have.
They're-
for the rest.
To do the
They
sign
have to
in.
go through
Correct.
training, yeah, that's why I understand.
Correct, yeah.
But these, I mean, just because they've done it in the past, we put something out there saying we need election inspectors, maybe.
So I
They're
think
getting-
paying the 2
So I think we
is a
should-
given. We're gonna
So-
pay the 2 no matter what, because then we'll be stuck. So I think the discussion is paying the other volunteers.
I don't mind paying them, but I'm just saying, you have to give that opportunity to everyone, not just the people because they've done it in the past.
So can we break it down to, so the first, we're not gonna vote individually, probably, I don't know, but we'll see. So the first one, that is a question. Does anyone on this board have a concern, a comment, anything with paying the, what's their election inspectors?
I guess that,
Yeah.
this might be a stupid question. Zoe, you might be able to answer this. So we're gonna pay them $350 a piece to come here and run the
No.
meeting. It was he said it was $700.
For all.
No,
They have to
that's-
pay
that's
them
what
all.
you
You pay the 2 election officials and all the volunteers.
Oh, okay, it would be total.
Grand total.
So,
that's
since we're
7
paying
people.
them,
Minimum
12,
wage.
15 hours.
So it would be
Okay.
8 hours times 12.50 for
Correct.
2 people, times 2 people,
For 2 people.
correct?
Yeah.
and, okay, that makes more sense
Yeah.
to me. And then what is the cutoff to where, because I don't want it to become a paper nightmare for you for taxes. Because you're gonna have, so we won't have to send them any forms for taxes with this
No.
amount of money? Okay, oh, I don't care.
So why are they all called election inspectors?
That's the
They're 2
term they
and
use.
the other ones are too.
Yes, they're all election inspectors. It's just they all have different jobs.
Because they have to go
So
through
so I'm looking for names.
So
So
2
6,
inspectors
7
from the,
to do the machine.
yeah, and that's fine. Some of
The
the-
line,
And then the volunteers we're talking about.
Lonnie does not get paid, right? Correct?
So I wanted to know about Lonnie and then the other ones.
Currently, he does not get paid.
But that's a total of 6 people.
So give us the breakdown of the others, like how many of there's 5 names there, you would have,
So I I usually have 4.
The one that's blank there, I know Gail Burr has done it in the past.
She helped out last year because we did a paper vote, but she has not been at the table in a while. It
Okay,
hasn't
so
worked
do
out.
you usually just have 5 people?
I usually have 6. I usually do like 4 and 4, but this is what I have for this year.
So a total of 8 then.
I can get a hold of her and see if she'll be back. She'll be
Okay.
back next week.
But so in answer to John's question, we have how many people working the 8-hour day besides the other Lonnie and the two that we talked about?
So I usually have 2 women sitting at the table from the noon to 4, and then the 4 to 8, I usually have 4 people. Because usually we have the concert and we get a big wave.
So 2 4-hour shifts and 4,
6 4 hours.
4, I got you, 6, okay.
And we're proposing to pay the chairman and chief inspector as well. I'm assuming.
That's your
That's
call.
the
That's-
discussion I
yeah.
would like to have because. Can I not give you my opinion right away?
Well, maybe to,
I'll give you my opinion if you.
but maybe to facilitate this,
Yes.
we have,
please.
you have 3 things to consider.
Yes.
Is everyone in favor of
Yes.
H1A?
That's what I'm getting,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
So that, okay, so that one you're okay with. So, I mean, Shereen will go back and she'll get names for first.
Due
and
to the
second.
fact that we have to use Yates County's people who have been trained, I don't think we have an option for A. I think
That's what I think
that's
she's,
a-
if you're honestly saying that we don't, the only 2
Right.
people that have said yes or said they won't do it unless they get paid, I don't think we have an option, right?
Right.
So,
If
so,
that's,
right. So the bulk of your conversation now becomes B and C. Are you, do you want to pay Lonnie? And do you want to pay the volunteers? I guess the conversation is yes or no and why, and then we can, and then we just move forward. Whatever you do, whatever you decide as a board is what we do. So that's why the floor is kind of open for that.
So you mentioned the other districts are paying the election inspectors.
Yes.
And
They pay everybody, all their jobs, yes.
But to be clear, there, I mean, just make sure
There
we're
are
transparent. There are a few
districts
districts that do not. So it's not 100%. I want to be very clear on that. There's
Yes.
4 that,
And I think we got.
yeah, there's 4 that don't.
we
So
take
is
that,
there
yeah,
ones
almost
who are
done.
just starting this year too, discussing it, or?
Not that I know. Not that I know.
I mean, I don't care if we pay those 6 people that are sitting at the table, but it's just their hand. They don't have, nobody else is not, having a job for a day or whatever,
can I ask what is the, so we have to have 2 people to run the machines. I got that. Hey, sounds good. What is the chairman and chief inspector on? What is it?
He's the one that opens the polls and he's the one that's gonna close the polls. And he helps me go through the absentee ballots and we feed them through the machine. And he's gonna be the one that announces the tally at the end of the night.
So it's a thing, right? There's always that position. But then
3
the
years.
others are just helping to get people in and out.
He's done it. He's volunteered for several years. I don't know how many years.
Yeah, so these people are your go-to that do it.
They
every-
are, they're the ones
So
that have been coming
I
every
kind
year.
of feel like since they're kind of grandfathered in, it's kind of a slap to the face of these guys to go and you choose to pay them. And then all of a sudden we open up to everybody and then
but they volunteer. They don't.
they did
Right.
volunteer,
They
but
don't
at the
even
same
know
time,
we're
they're kind of
talking about
grandfathered.
paying,
They weren't
Well, let's
asking for the
pretend those
money.
names weren't even here. Let's pretend their names weren't here because it was our discussion, I wanted to have discussion because I believe these people were not made aware that we were having this discussion, correct? Now,
Yeah,
it's a
that's what I
public,
just said,
yeah, it's a public meeting and now they're gonna be aware, but let's pretend those names were not there. The discussion is,
I don't care.
do we want to pay $12.50 an hour or whatever minimum wage is every year? And it will be for the rest of the time. I mean, I've heard this board in the past say, once it's in there forever. That's why I think it's worth the discussion.
Sure, would you see it? Obviously, if these are your go-to people, it's gonna help, you got comfort level, it's gonna help you run some shit. But let's say if we do propose paying people in those, maybe we could do something where it's a term, they have terms or something. If new people want to come in or something. I don't know, I understand what Sue's saying, but I also like continuity as well, for your sake. I would hate for you to have to deal with 60 people every year.
Are they asking to be paid?
But there's people who do
Never-
it for
they
the
Yeah.
other
They're gonna
elections
volunteer.
that I live in our district. It probably just isn't.
Yeah, Chad made these 2 comments. They don't know. And so the reason why the conversation came up was during the agenda setting meeting, it was, are we okay in one space knowing that they're gonna, people are gonna know that some people are getting paid to be there for the 8 hours and some people maybe are not. And I guess that's what said, well, let's talk about it at the board level, because are we okay with that? And if we are, then to Sue's point, even though people have helped for a long time, do you then, if you're gonna pay them, you probably out of fairness have to open it up, or do you to community members, right? Or if you're gonna have volunteers, do you open that up to people to say, hey, look, I want to let you know up front, the election inspectors who are running the machines are being paid. We're asking you to volunteer. Are you okay with that or not? And I guess the question becomes, it doesn't matter to me either way, but the question becomes, do we think we know enough people who would still do that? Like, could Sue pick up the phone and call 2 or 3 people and say, hey, look, I need a favor for me, or you've always said, where could you help? I could use your help at the voter table for the vote night. You're not gonna get paid, but I'd appreciate it. And could this group, could you generate enough people to say yes to that? I guess is, if Sheila, if you wanted me to kind of direct it, that's what I would say. You're kind of talking about, if you'd like them to remain volunteer, are the 9 of you okay with picking up the phone and calling some people and saying, hey, I'm creating a pool of possible people to give to Shireen to be volunteers. Is it okay for me to put you on that list? Or do you want to say, forget that, we're just going to pay them and we're going to put an ad in the thing, hey, look, I've got these positions paying this much an hour for 8 hours, please send Shireen your interest or not. I guess that's what we're talking about.
Can I just ask, and I should know this, these people already volunteered, right?
Yes.
So these people have been contacted and they're volunteering at this moment.
Correct.
Without knowing.
And that's it, right? I mean, there's not an overabundance of people volunteering to do this.
No, I came to the board, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, because I was running low on volunteers. And that's how I got a few
I've heard
people
of
that are on
people
this
say they
list.
wanted to do this. I think they will. I think we're gonna have people back away a little bit because of where we are this year. Or maybe because they're not bringing them out, they're gonna be in contact with a lot of people that you've got to be comfortable doing that. And I don't know where everybody stands with that this year. That doesn't mean that we need to move, I shouldn't say, we don't need to move to pay them. I just think this year, the volunteers may be a little less than what it might be even next year, just because of where we are.
I agree with that.
Where we are.
I have a question. In order to be one of these election inspectors, because we were talking to one of our former teachers who has property in our district, so pays taxes, but their residence is not in our district. So in order to be one of these inspectors, they have to reside in our district.
We do.
Okay, that was one question we had. All right, so the conversation that Sheila and I and another former teacher had last week, just so that the rest of you guys know it. And I can understand the
Absolutely.
fact that, pardon me?
At Food Link.
I understand the fact that the election inspectors that do the machines absolutely have to be paid because they are trained people. We are bound by Yates County, since we use their machines, to use the people that they have given us. So that's a select few people. We don't have an option there. The rest of them, what we were saying, what we were discussing was Lonnie's position and the election inspectors, the other people that volunteer, was the fact that, a lot of people here don't mind volunteering. We volunteer to do this. I know several of us volunteer to do a lot of other things in this community, outside or in this area, or specifically this community. And so we kind of felt like, there were still people that were willing to volunteer and, for the 4 hours at the $50 for the day minus taxes, it wasn't going to be a big deal to them one way or another. So it wasn't really going to be an issue. We thought that that there were people that still would volunteer and that we didn't have to go through this whole stuff of paying them. Because we felt that, there are people that do want to volunteer and do things for the school, as we all do.
So the compromise then be pay, for our volunteers, we have to pay at least if getting paid is something it's like a deal breaker. Just like this year, you're already in, right? They're already in, they're volunteering this year. If we have to pay for these, it's going to be put out to everyone. Like it would not be guaranteed. If we're gonna pay, I mean, I feel like it's the right thing to do, right? I want to be on a rotating list. And I'm really sorry, I won't take much more time over something so minuscule, but I understand I understand the points, right? I mean, my guess is they'll be like, yeah, we're gonna pay. Like, we do this 'cause we like it.
So you have to, so you go with volunteers, which is leaning, I think I'm leaning that way a little bit. Just be prepared. I told, in Jenna's study meeting, that you may hear from these volunteers. You know, when it all gets said and done, but like, I think Dr. Brown has shared, I think we need to let them know before they come in there, because I don't need that
Agreed.
tension in that room.
Well, they should be made aware.
We're
Yeah.
not gonna hear about it after tonight.
But even-
You might,
Yeah,
yeah.
Everybody's gonna talk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're just gonna call us. I mean, yeah, so you need to be made
So maybe,
aware.
you know, if we're hearing that, it's gonna, then we're gonna probably have to come back. I mean, then we'll have to address it again.
Well, you know, if it's an issue, you just say those other two are trained, which they are.
Yeah, like, yeah.
They have to spend their time.
Plus the fact that we're talking about, they're gonna get $50 minus a third of it for taxes,
No,
so,
they'll get paid, it won't go. to payroll. It'll be a health.
so they won't lose taxes on the end, they won't, so it'll be $50.
Sheree, what's the training that has to go in there? Let's say we have to start the whole fresh crew of volunteers on a year.
They would come in for like an hour and a half. For the ones sitting at the table, the Board of Elections, they handle the training of the machine at their place.
Yeah, but these folks that would be and see, so it would take time.
It would.
Require them to come.
Right.
So I think if we got to where we did pay for this, that's also something that you require. Training ahead of time.
Mhm.
So it makes for a smooth day.
Student question, what do you face, Chaplain? What do you supervise? For zero training, you just stand there and watch. Just throwing that out. That's good. It's not. No, I would argue the
Something
job
that's
here.
here that's more official. You're coming in and voting on watching the serious thing. That's something that.
No, I'm having,
That's what
we're
he's
advocating
saying.
for the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm
he's
simply saying,
that.
we pay a game chaperone $60
Just sit there.
to sit there. Sorry. And not to say that something couldn't go wrong, but this is official budget.
Perhaps.
So I've kind of flipped on you, I'm sorry for that. but I'm thinking to myself, I know, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wait a second.
In February, 16,
Yeah,
15
right.
hours.
That goes by the teacher's
Oh,
contract.
no, 100%, I totally understand that. We do the same thing, we pay our $60.
No, it's 16, 15 hours.
Oh, 16.50.
Oh.
Still.
So not to put you in a bad spot, but if we don't, we have to have a decision point tonight because we've got to get, we have a lot of rock and roll to do between now and the budget vote. And so if we want them to be volunteers, that's fine. If we don't, that's fine too, but we've got to come to a decision point so that we can do our next steps, to follow our process.
I know you've been letting us speak. I would like to hear from you.
I just, it's tough when you're in public session because I wish there were not names written down. I'm talking about the position and going forward, because like I just said, there's stuff in every contract that any one of the people sitting around this table said, that's in there, it's gonna be in there for the rest of the time. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but, and I think everybody's made great points, but we're up here doing Food Link because we want to. And every single time in Food Link, we get people that say, can I help? Is there anything I can do to give back to the district? And I mean, I'm not the one that has to get all the volunteers. I'm not for Food Link or anything, but I'm the one, those were my words. I'll be honest with you to Chris. I'm like, if every board member sitting around this table can't find one person that could do this, that could volunteer, I would just be surprised. I don't know that. Maybe you can't, maybe, that's what I was saying. And again, I'm trying to be conscientious of the taxpayer dollars that, if all of us could get one person to volunteer, then there we go. That would be enough people. And I commend them for for volunteering every year. But I mean, look around this table, how many, have you coached a sport? Have you, done Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or whatever, a music program? Have you volunteered for anything yourself? And I'm just saying, I would find it really hard to believe if we could not have however many we just said, 6 volunteers, but I don't want to offend anyone because we do. Now, I agree with what somebody said. We do have to pay the other, if they're truly saying, I will not come unless you pay me. So we have to pay them. I mean, we're caught between a rock and a hard place. And it, I guess, would be hard if they all know that somebody else, but I mean, again, I'm volunteering, sitting around this table, and I can point to 5 people that are getting paid. So that, like, does that matter? Are you here? Are you here because you want to be? Are you here because of Marcus Whitman? I am. I mean, I don't know. Don't get me going on my little, but that's all. It's that's all. But again, I don't want to take away from what those 5 or 6 people give us every year. And, I haven't been the one that has to call them every year. So I don't want to offend anyone by my opinion, but it's just I'm big into volunteer. That's my whole life is volunteer. And so.
I don't think you're offending. I mean,
No, I don't want to offend.
just
That's
like-
why.
Just like I didn't want to be considered as offending someone who does a game chat.
You're right.
It's not-
No,
it's not what that's about.
my response is taking those, it has nothing to do with the names that are listed there. It has to do with the position, so. I know, but anyways, we do have to vote on it tonight, and
As it appears here, it doesn't say that we're paying H1B and H1C at all anyway.
because at our agenda setting meeting, this was all worded differently. So I asked if it could be, I'll be honest with you, I asked if it could just be worded this way, and then we could change anything we want right now. So I thought it was important to vote it on it separately. So I'm sorry if that was wrong, but I just thought it was good
So it
to,
does have minimum wage for H1A.
yes.
Yeah.
So we're not going to vote at this exact moment, but is everyone okay with voting on it the 3 different ways? So, and then that being said, we're going to have to, if someone wants to make a motion to change the wording of that the second or the third one, we can do that, right? Is that how we can do it?
Yeah.
So do you want to vote on H1A first? Okay, can we do that? Okay, so I heard John and Corey, motion and second for H1A. So are there any further questions on H1A? Okay, if not, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? That motion is carried. So again, for H1B, we're gonna, if somebody would like to move the motion and make any changes, do you want to vote on B and C separately or together? Separate? Okay. Okay, so we're either going to, that's the question, is we're either going to vote on it like that, or we're going to add at minimum wage.
The way
Is it-
now is just appointed.
Correct.
Volunteers.
Correct.
Make a motion for appointed volunteers.
Okay. So we got Jeff and Sue. Is there any further discussion on that?
That's just for B.
So we're gonna do B as it is written. So no discussion?
Sort of have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're gonna do it that way.
So are we okay with that?
Not pay the chief inspector and then pay the other. Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to make the motion for B and C?
Yes.
Okay, are you okay with seconding that, Sue? Okay. So let me just say this before, I'm not telling anybody, but if you want it to go through that way, then you're gonna vote yes, is that correct? And if you want to amend it, you're gonna vote no, or we're gonna vote no, and then we're gonna have to re-vote. How's that gonna work? I'm trying to get my parliamentary, all right?
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay, I'm not telling anybody how to vote, I'm just saying, okay, so we have a motion, we have it seconded. Are there any other questions on that? All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you for the discussion. And I think that, as Sue always says, the tickler file, if we want to bring that up at the next March or April meeting, I think we will have feedback, obviously, by then, that would be fair to bring up. Thank you. Now, are we public access to the board? We're gonna try to
And
bring.
this roof thing better work. I probably owe her a gift certificate to Jax or something like that.
All right, that brings us to public access. Ruth, if you're still with us, we'd love to hear from you.
I owe her a Jax. That's cool.
Find her and
Calling
find
in
out
right
her
now.
name. Okay.
Hello. Hi. I wondered if this was Jax trying to get your order. I owe you something for waiting on the line. I appreciate it. Let me find the best way for
Maybe your mic
you.
or your microphone.
I'm gonna put you up to the microphone, okay? Here, anyway. All right, go ahead. I appreciate your patience.
Oh, absolutely. I thought about saying, can you hear me now? Like the guy on TV, but figured he didn't want that. All right. Well, thank you everyone for allowing us to speak. My name is Ruth Pryor. I'm the director of the Gorham Free Library. And I wanted to have a chance to speak with everyone briefly about the propositions that the three libraries have on the ballot for the budget vote this year. It looks different this year than it has in the past for a few reasons, and it's very important that the public understands these reasons before the vote. The Middlesex and Rushville Reading Centers need the additional funding in order to meet New York State minimum standards and become chartered public libraries. If they don't receive this funding, then they may have to close. They may not be able to meet the needs of the residents in their district, which is, the Marcus Vinton district. So it's very important that they're able to get additional funding if the public approves this. And the Gorham Library is basically reframing the way we're funded this year. Normally we receive funds from the town of Gorham and Seneca as well as the levy vote that we put forth to the voters. And this year we're hoping to have all of the money be approved by the voters, and instead of having the funding for the Gorham Library come from 3 different tax bills, have it just be all in one place for now until whenever the district decides that they want to continue to fund the libraries through the annual levy. So, that's pretty much all that I have to share, unless there's questions from the board.
We're just kind of looking around the boardroom, seeing if anybody has any questions right now. I appreciate you being so thorough, and I also, like I said, I appreciate your patience too. We're all in this together. Well, and then what'll happen, Ruth, is we have an official public hearing where I've got to present the budget. The board can't wait for me to present it to them again. And so when that happens, you'll also get an opportunity there to say exactly what you just said. And so you'll have 2 opportunities to be able to address the community. Plus, what you said will be on the YouTube recording as well, which will be helpful too for you to use.
Good, thank you. Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Dale, thank you as well. Have a great night. And like I said, be on the lookout for that Jack's gift certificate, okay?
I don't even know what Jack says, but thanks.
Oh, no.
Jack's Diner down in the
Oh, no.
village. So I'll get you, how about we do, well, I'll come up with something, don't worry. I'll be creative. All right. Thanks again. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Oh, that's fine. All right. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak?
We do, through our YouTube channel, Chandra Gilman, saying that it's imperative to properly fund our Gorham Library, especially the Middlesex and Rushville Reading Centers that need to be chartered, which will be required by New York State to continue to serve our communities. It's a very scary thought. There's a possibility of closure. In my opinion, it would be difficult for students in both these towns to get to Gorham Library, not to mention the COVID restrictions. She wanted to write so much more, but she has a 200-word limit. So I gave her the board email address that she could
Okay.
email the board. This way we can all see
Great.
that.
Thank you,
And,
Chandra.
I believe that's all I have. And Chandra just mentioned that the election inspectors are paid for village, town, and county elections. They are. And those are the only
Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to some important dates. The famous 7:30 a.m. Zoom meeting will now be Zoom, April 28th. We just need a show of hands of who can attend that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, because all we need is 5. Oh, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 6.
Come to my house.
Okay. You got that?
You'll send us a reminder on that,
I
right?
will.
Yeah, you, the night before.
Is sending or no?
Zoom can't, no.
Okay.
So can you send that the night before?
I will. Oh, I got a lot of information for that meeting, so.
Okay, so you'll, yeah, and I got one email from a gentleman.
It's 7:30.
7:30.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
and it'll
some-
be
From
Zoom.
Dundee.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all I said, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make
Interesting,
sure I get this in my calendar. So 7:30 a.m.
on the
April
28th.
Okay.
Yep, and it will be Zoom.
It'll be Zoom. And there's 6 people running for the BOCES board and you need to vote for 4. I have all of their information, so
No,
I'll
we don't
be,
have anything, we just have the one guy. that said, "Oh,
Can you send that sooner
Yes.
rather than later?
yeah, I'll be sending it this week, so you have it to review.
Okay. And, yeah.
Mhm.
And then April 29th for staff appreciation. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So what we're doing right now is working with our administrators to find best times. So if you as board members are able to either sneak out of work for an hour or 2, or if you have available time to come over just to thank all of our employees. Shireen's helping to put together kind of a schedule like we've done in the past. We're going to get you in the buildings and you'll be able to see people. So, Dan Blankenberg, for example, will try to collect his people at different times. So you can get them all at once where certain buildings might not be able to do that. So you might walk down the hall for half an hour, 45 minutes and just, say thank you and just check in a little bit. I know they really appreciate it. And I think this year more than ever, they're really going to appreciate it. So Shireen will be in touch once we hear from the rest of the administrative team on like time slots of availability. Then you can figure out what works best for your individual calendars.
All right. And then I know the audit committee has a meeting, the 27th. We don't know if that's going to be Zoom yet.
I
or-
just got an email today, because we're gonna start the pre-audit,
Okay.
and his question was, does the audit committee want to meet and do annual, the meeting, where it goes through what they do? So,
I don't think that's necessary.
I mean, you probably could zoom into the meeting if you wanted to have a discussion with them. I mean, I don't think there's any major changes. There is a couple things, but there's just accounting mechanisms that we'll share with you.
I mean, it doesn't matter, they have to do what they have to do, so.
Yeah.
I just want them to know.
Okay, all right, I will make a phone call for that.
So that we will still have a meeting or not? We don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, okay. But so let us know if it's Zoom or in person. Okay. All right. Are there any other board topics?
I had a Zoom meeting at 4 o'clock this afternoon with Fort County. We had an agenda setting meeting for the board of directors meeting, which is next Tuesday at 5:30,
Okay, because they keep checking.
the 20th.
20th, okay,
And they're gonna be sending out the stuff tomorrow.
okay.
I had a legislative committee Zoom meeting on Saturday. So one of the things that they are looking at doing is not so much lobbying, but trying to make connections with other people and other groups as far as pushing for certain legislation that is meaningful to us in our area, as far as what we would like the legislative branch to do as far as schools go. And one of the things that Vicki Ramos spoke to us for a while, and one of the things she said was, that we should not be doing this like dropping it now because everything is done in the year and then waiting until October, pick it up. If this is like a year-round thing that we need to be thinking about. So if there are any things that in particular that we need or want or desire for our school district, our area, please let me know so I can bring it to them.
Okay.
But keep it in your mind because it's just like a constant. One of the two things that they were very much going for this year was COVID relief and broadband access because it was so pitiful in so many areas in our Fort County area district. So those are the type of things that, you know, that they're looking for right now. So if you can think of other things that you would like them to address, please let me know.
I'll skip. Okay. Good. Okay, are there any other board member items? So if not, we're gonna have to take a 5 to 10 minute, 5-minute break to do whatever we have to do here. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
but I forgot one thing, you know, with my age, I don't remember everything. And I would like to be added to the list of volunteers because between now and Mother's Day, I would like to help 2 or 3 mornings in the greenhouse. And I would like, you know, to consider that. If you don't want me, I've already talked to Mary.
Isn't there a form you got?
Well, yeah, we'll have somebody, Sharita or somebody get you a form.
I'm trying to get paid, but I know she called me at home and she said, you can't come until 4 o'clock because I have to wait till my husband comes home and takes care of the children. And I said, I will be there. And I know.
Well, we'll get you the proper forms that you gotta fill out, but thank you.
Whatever I need, I'd like to do that.
All right, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break and then we are going to go into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person or person.